The sun rose slowly over the horizon of Novaterra, painting the sky in shades of purple and orange. The human colony, nestled between rolling hills and crystal-clear lakes, began to stir. Men, women, and children emerged from their homes, ready to start another day under the watchful eye of the Galactic Empire. Among them was little Timmy, a bright-eyed boy of 7. His mop of unruly brown hair bounced as he skipped down the street, waving to neighbors and friends. Everyone knew Timmy. His laughter was infectious, his smile a beacon of joy in the sometimes harsh reality of colonial life. "Morning, Timmy," called Mrs. Johnson from her garden. "Off to school?" Timmy grinned and nodded, his backpack almost as big as he was. "Yes, Mom. We're learning about Earth today." As Timmy continued his journey, a shadow fell over the colony. A massive ship, sleek and menacing, descended from the clouds. The Galactic Empire had arrived for their annual inspection. The colonists tensed. These visits were never pleasant. Imperial officials, with their cold eyes and colder hearts, seemed to take pleasure in finding faults and issuing punishments. Timmy watched in awe as the ship landed. He had never seen one up close before. Despite the adults' warnings, curiosity got the better of him. He inched closer, hiding behind a stack of supply crates. 3 figures emerged from the ship. They wore crisp uniforms adorned with medals and insignias Timmy didn't understand. Their faces were stern, almost cruel. "Let's get this over with," the tallest one growled. "I hate these backwater planets." As they strode into the colony center, Timmy couldn't help but follow. He ducked from cover to cover, feeling like a spy on a secret mission. The officials began their inspection, nitpicking every detail. They berated the colony leader, a kind man named David, for minor infractions. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. Suddenly, Timmy's foot caught on a loose stone. He stumbled, knocking over a stack of metal containers. The crash echoed through the square. All eyes turned to him. The Imperial officials' faces darkened with anger. "What is this?" the tall one snarled. "Spying on us, are you, boy?" Timmy trembled. "And no, sir, I was just curious." The official's hand moved to his weapon. Curiosity can be dangerous, human. David stepped forward, his hands raised. "Please, he's just a child. He meant no harm." But the damage was done. The official's paranoia, fueled by years of subjugating alien races, took over. In a flash, his weapon was out. Time seemed to slow. Timmy saw the fear in David's eyes, heard the gasps of the colonists. He didn't understand what was happening until it was too late. A blast of energy erupted from the weapon. It struck Timmy square in the chest. For a moment, the boy stood there, a look of confusion on his face. Then, like a puppet with its strings cut, he crumpled to the ground. Silence fell over the colony. Then, a heart-wrenching wail broke out. Timmy's mother rushed forward, cradling her son's lifeless body. The official lowered his weapon, a flicker of doubt crossing his face. But it was quickly replaced by cold indifference. "Let this be a lesson," he said. "The Empire does not tolerate any form of insurrection, no matter how small." As the officials returned to their ship, leaving devastation in their wake, something changed in the hearts of the colonists. The shock and grief began to give way to anger. Whispers of rebellion spread like wildfire. Little did the Empire know, but this single act of cruelty would be the spark that ignited a firestorm. As news of Timmy's death spread across human colonies and back to Earth, a sleeping giant began to stir. The humans, long thought to be a weak and subservient race, were about to show the galaxy what they were truly capable of. And it all started here, on a small colony called Novaterra, with the death of a curious little boy named Timmy. The news of Timmy's death spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Within hours, it reached Earth. The planet, once thought to be a backwater world by the Galactic Empire, suddenly buzzed with activity. In a secret underground bunker beneath the ruins of old New York, world leaders gathered. The room was tense, filled with angry mutters and clenched fists. "This cannot stand," said President Chen, her voice shaking with rage. "The Empire has gone too far this time." General Williams, a grizzled veteran, stepped forward. "Madam President, perhaps it's time we showed our true strength." A hush fell over the room. Everyone knew what he meant. For decades, Earth had been preparing in secret. While pretending to be a weak, compliant member of the Empire, they had been building, planning, waiting for the right moment. President Chen nodded grimly. "Show them." The general pressed a button, and a holographic display flickered to life. It showed countless shipyards hidden in asteroid belts, moons, and distant planets. Each yard was building massive warships. "Ladies and gentlemen," General Williams said, "I give you the Earth Defense Fleet." Gasps echoed through the room. The ships were unlike anything the Empire had. Sleek, deadly, and numbering in the hundreds of thousands. How did we hide this?" asked the British Prime Minister, his eyes wide. "Misdirection," replied the general with a grim smile. "While the Empire thought we were mining resources for them, we were building our fleet. Every scientist, every engineer, every citizen has played a part in this deception." President Chen stood up, her decision made. "Activate the fleet. All of it." Across the solar system, hidden bases sprang to life. On Mars, massive doors opened in the side of Olympus Mons, revealing shipyards. Jupiter's moons lit up with activity as ships emerged from hidden docks. Even on Earth, mountains split open and seas parted, unveiling ships of incredible size. The ground shook as engines roared to life for the first time. In orbit, the few Imperial ships stationed to watch Earth suddenly found themselves surrounded. Before they could react, they were disabled, their crews captured. Back in the bunker, the world leaders watched in awe as ship after ship reported in. Destroyers, cruisers, and at the heart of it all, 700,000 dreadnoughts. Each one was a city in space, armed to the teeth and crewed by Earth's finest. "My God," whispered the French president, "we really did it." As the fleet assembled, a message was broadcast to every human colony and outpost in the galaxy. It showed the massive armada and carried a simple message: Earth stands with you. Freedom is coming. Cheers erupted across human settlements. People who had lived in fear for generations suddenly felt hope. They began to rise up, overwhelming the shocked Imperial garrisons. On Novaterra, where it all began, the colonists toppled the Imperial governor. They raised Earth's flag, tears in their eyes as they looked to the sky, waiting for their liberation. The Empire, caught completely off guard, scrambled to respond. But they were too slow, too disorganized. By the time they realized the true threat, Earth's fleet was already on the move. In the lead ship, named Timmy's Vengeance, President Chen and General Williams stood on the bridge. They watched as the armada entered faster than light travel, disappearing in a flash of light. "May God have mercy on them," President Chen said softly. "Because we won't." As the fleet raced towards the heart of the Empire, news spread across the galaxy. Other alien races, long oppressed by the Empire, watched in disbelief. The humans, whom they had pitied and looked down upon, were now their last hope for freedom. The sleeping giant had awoken, and the galaxy would never be the same again. In the glittering capital of the Galactic Empire, alarms blared. The Emperor, a tall, blue-skinned alien with 4 arms, sat on his golden throne. His advisors rushed around, shouting and waving datapads. "What is the meaning of this?" The Emperor growled, his voice echoing through the massive hall. A nervous advisor stepped forward, bowing low. "Your Majesty, we have a situation with the humans." The Emperor laughed, a harsh sound that made everyone flinch. The humans, those weak creatures, what could they possibly do? The advisor swallowed hard. They have revealed a massive fleet, Your Majesty. Our sources say it numbers in the hundreds of thousands. For a moment, the Emperor was silent. Then he burst out laughing again. Impossible. It must be a trick. Some holographic projection to scare us. But, Your Majesty, another advisor chimed in. We've lost contact with all our forces in human-controlled space, and there are reports of uprisings on human colonies across the galaxy. The Emperor waved a hand dismissively. Send a fleet to crush this pathetic rebellion. Show them the true might of the Empire. In space, a fleet of 1,000 Imperial warships gathered. Their captain, a decorated war hero named Zork, smiled confidently. These humans think they can challenge us. We'll teach them a lesson they'll never forget. The Imperial fleet jumped into hyperspace, heading for the nearest human colony. They expected to find a ragtag group of ships, easy to destroy. What they found instead made their blood run cold. A vast armada of sleek, deadly-looking ships waited for them. At its heart were massive dreadnoughts, each one bigger than anything the Empire had ever built. Zork's confidence wavered. That's impossible, he whispered. Before he could give any orders, the human fleet opened fire. Advanced weapons, far beyond what the Empire thought humans capable of, tore through Imperial shields like they were paper. In less than an hour, the battle was over. The entire Imperial fleet was destroyed or captured. Zork, his ship crippled, could only watch in horror as human ships surrounded him. Back in the capital, the Emperor received the news with disbelief. How? He roared. How could those primitives defeat our best ships? His advisors cowered, none wanting to admit the truth. They had underestimated the humans. Badly. In a desperate attempt to save face, the Emperor issued a galaxy-wide broadcast. Citizens of the Empire, he began, his voice dripping with false confidence. Do not be alarmed by the human rebellion. It will be crushed swiftly and decisively. But across the galaxy, people weren't buying it. Other alien races, long oppressed by the Empire, began to whisper. If the humans could stand up to the Empire, maybe they could too. On human colonies, the broadcast was met with laughter and cheers. They knew the truth. The Empire was running scared. As news of the Imperial defeat spread, more and more worlds began to rebel. The Empire, which had stood for thousands of years, was beginning to crumble. In his throne room, the Emperor paced nervously. How did we not see this coming? He muttered. How did they hide such power from us? An old advisor, braver than the rest, spoke up. Perhaps, Your Majesty, we were too proud, too sure of our own superiority. The Emperor turned, his eyes blazing with anger. But deep down, he knew the advisor was right. Their hubris, their absolute belief in their own invincibility, had blinded them to the threat the humans posed. As reports of more defeats poured in, the Emperor realized a terrifying truth. This was no mere rebellion. This was a war for the very survival of the Empire. And for the first time in his long life, he wasn't sure they would win. In space, the human fleet continued its advance. Led by ships with names like Earth's Vengeance and Timmy's Justice, they cut a swath through Imperial defenses. The message was clear. Humanity had been pushed too far, and now the Empire would pay the price. The galaxy watched in awe as the balance of power shifted. The age of Imperial rule was ending, and a new era, led by the once underestimated humans, was about to begin. The news of Earth's massive fleet and their victory over the Imperial forces spread across the galaxy like a supernova. On countless worlds, in spaceports and alien cities, in the deep forests of sentient plants, and the underwater domes of aquatic species, everyone was talking about the humans. On the trading planet of Zarxon, a hub for 100 different species, the main square was packed. Aliens of all shapes and sizes crowded around giant screens, watching the latest reports. Did you see those ships? A tentacled creature whistled to its neighbor. I've never seen anything like them. A floating gas being pulsed with excitement. They say the humans hid them for years, right under the Empire's nose. In the back, a group of Imperial citizens huddled together, their faces pale. How could this happen? One whispered. The Empire has always been invincible. Meanwhile, on the forest world of Arborea, home to the ancient and wise treefolk, the elders gathered in their great ring of stumps. The eldest, his bark wrinkled with 10,000 years of life, spoke slowly. For too long, we have watched the Empire's cruelty in silence, he creaked. Perhaps these humans are the change we have waited for. The other elders rustled in agreement. One of the younger saplings spoke up, her leaves quivering. But can we trust them? What if they become just like the Empire? The old one's branches swayed thoughtfully. We must reach out to them, offer our support, and in doing so, help shape the future they will bring. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out. Species that had been enemies for millennia found themselves united in their hope, or fear, of what the human uprising meant. In the depths of space, the hive mind of the insectoid Vexcar buzzed with activity. Billions of minds linked together, processing the new information. The humans were always seen as weak. The hive mind fought to itself. But they were strong enough to fool the Empire. Perhaps we underestimated them too. With a decision that sent ripples through its vast network, the hive mind decided to send envoys to the human fleet. Not to fight, but to talk. Back in the heart of Imperial space, panic was setting in. On the luxury planet of Paradiso, playground for the Empire's elite, ships were taking off by the thousands. The rich and powerful were fleeing, taking their wealth with them. Where will you go? The servant asked his master, a high-ranking Imperial official. The official clutched his bags of precious gems. Somewhere the humans won't find us. Somewhere safe. But as reports came in of human ships appearing in system after system, it became clear there was nowhere in the galaxy beyond their reach. On Earth itself, the mood was a mix of pride, determination, and uncertainty. In the streets of rebuilt cities, humans celebrated their victories. But in quiet moments, many wondered about the cost of war and what would come after. In a small town in what was once called Iowa, a group of children played in a park. They looked up at the sky, pointing at the faint shapes of orbiting warships. "My dad's up there," one boy said proudly. "He's fighting the bad aliens." An old woman sitting nearby smiled sadly. "There's no such thing as bad aliens, child. Just bad choices. Let's hope we make better ones." As the human fleet pushed deeper into Imperial space, other races began to take sides. Some, like the warrior Krathul, pledged their ships to the human cause. Others, fearing change, rallied to the Empire's defense. The galaxy, which had known the Empire's rule for so long, was being shaken to its core. Old alliances crumbled, new ones formed. And at the center of it all were the humans, the species that everyone had overlooked. In the void between stars, aboard the flagship of the human fleet, Admiral Chen looked out at the vast armada under her command. She thought of Timmy, the boy whose death had started all this. She thought of Earth, hidden and preparing for so long. And she thought of the future, unknown and full of possibility. "We wanted freedom," she said softly to herself. "Now we have to decide what to do with it." The human ships flew on, carrying with them the hopes and fears of a galaxy in turmoil. The age of the Empire was ending. What would take its place? Only time would tell. The vast emptiness of space lit up with explosions. Laser beams crisscrossed the darkness, and missiles left trails of light as they sought their targets. The war between Earth and the Galactic Empire had reached its peak. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Earthen Fury, the largest of Earth's dreadnoughts. Her eyes were fixed on the tactical display, watching as human ships engaged the Imperial fleet. "Status report," she barked. A young officer replied. "We've broken through their outer defenses, Admiral, but they're regrouping around Nexus Prime." Nexus Prime, a massive space station, was one of the Empire's key strongholds. Taking it would be a huge victory for Earth. Chen nodded grimly. "All ships, focus fire on their shield generators. We're taking that station today." As the battle raged, Other conflicts spread across the galaxy. On the desert planet Terek, human ground forces fought alongside the native Tarokians against Imperial troops. Captain Rodriguez led his squad through the sandy streets of the capital city. Laser fire zipped overhead as they took cover behind a fallen statue of the Emperor. "Push forward," Rodriguez shouted. "We need to reach the command center." A Tarokian warrior, her scaly skin glistening in the sunlight, nodded to Rodriguez. "We're with you, human. Today, we claim our freedom." Back in space, the Empire was not going down without a fight. Grand Admiral Zox, a veteran of 100 campaigns, marshaled his forces. "Deploy the Planet Crusher," he ordered, his voice cold. His subordinates gasped. The Planet Crusher was the Empire's most terrifying weapon, capable of destroying entire worlds. As the massive ship moved into position, alarms blared on the human ships. Admiral Chen, an officer, called out, "They're powering up some kind of super weapon." Chen's mind raced. They couldn't let that weapon fire, not when they were so close to victory. "All ships," she commanded, "throw everything we've got at that monstrosity, and get me Captain Zhang on the line." Captain Li Zhang, commanding Earth's most advanced stealth ship, appeared on the screen. Chen's orders were simple: disable that weapon, whatever it takes. Zhang's ship, the Silent Arrow, slipped past the Imperial defenses. Using technology reverse-engineered from a dozen alien races, it was practically invisible. Inside the Planet Crusher, Imperial technicians worked frantically to bring the weapon online. They never noticed the small team of human special forces that infiltrated their ship. Zhang led her team through the narrow corridors. "Plant the charges," she whispered. "We've got one shot at this." Outside, the battle reached its climax. Human ships, though outnumbered, fought with a ferocity that shocked the Imperial forces. For every Earth ship destroyed, 3 Imperial vessels fell. On the bridge of his flagship, Grand Admiral Zox watched in disbelief as his carefully laid plans fell apart. "Impossible," he muttered. "How can they be so strong?" The answer came in a series of explosions that rocked the Planet Crusher. Alarms blared as the mighty weapon began to break apart. "All ships, retreat," Zox yelled, but it was too late. With the Planet Crusher neutralized, the human fleet pressed their advantage. Nexus Prime's shields flickered and died under the onslaught. As Imperial ships fled in disarray, Chen allowed herself a small smile. "Send ground teams to secure the station," she ordered. Across the galaxy, news of the battle spread. On 1,000 worlds, oppressed species looked to the skies with hope. The seemingly invincible Empire was falling, and humanity led the charge. In the ruins of the Imperial Command Center on Terok, Captain Rodriguez helped raise a new flag, one that represented both Earth and Terok, united in freedom. The war was far from over. The Empire still controlled vast regions of space, and they would not give up easily. But for the first time, the end was in sight. As the dust settled on Nexus Prime, Admiral Chen walked through its captured halls. She paused by a window, looking out at the stars. "This is for you, Timmy," she said softly, "and for all those the Empire has hurt. We're almost there." With renewed determination, she turned back to her duties. The next battle awaited, and Earth would be ready. The capital world of the Galactic Empire, Imperius Prime, glowed like a jewel in the darkness of space. Its gleaming cities and towering spires had stood for millennia, a symbol of the Empire's unshakable power. But today, that power was under threat. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Earthen Fury, leading the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history. 700,000 human dreadnoughts, along with ships from a dozen allied alien races, filled the space around Imperius Prime. "This is it," Chen said, her voice carrying to every ship in the fleet. "Today, we end the Empire's reign of terror." On the planet below, Emperor Zorn Exodiax paced in his golden throne room. His advisors huddled in corners, whispering fearfully. "How did it come to this?" Zorn growled. How did those primitive humans push us so far? An old advisor, braver than the rest, stepped forward. Perhaps, Your Majesty, it was our own cruelty that brought us here. The death of that human child. Silence. Zorn roared. But deep down, he knew the advisor spoke the truth. As the human fleet approached, the Empire's last line of defense sprang into action. Massive ion cannons on the planet's surface fired into space, creating a dazzling light show. On board the Earthen Fury, alarms blared. Ion storm ahead. An officer shouted, "Our systems are going haywire." Chen gripped her command chair. "Activate the quantum shields," she ordered. This technology, developed in secret on Earth, was humanity's trump card. The ion blasts washed over the human ships, but the quantum shields held. The fleet pushed forward, unstoppable. On a smaller, faster ship named Timmy's Vengeance, Captain Lai Zong led a special forces team. Their mission: infiltrate the Imperial Palace and capture the Emperor. "Remember why we're here," Zhang told her team as their ship dodged through the chaos of battle. "For Timmy, and for every innocent the Empire has hurt." As the space battle raged, Zhang's team landed on the outskirts of the capital city. They moved swiftly through the streets, using advanced cloaking technology to avoid detection. Back in space, the human fleet engaged the Empire's last defensive line. Laser fire and explosions lit up the sky over Imperius Prime. Admiral Chen watched as enemy ships fell one by one. "Press the advantage," she commanded. "Don't let up." In the Imperial Palace, Emperor Zorn received dire news. "Your Majesty," a general said, trembling, "our outer defenses have fallen. The humans, they're unstoppable." For the first time in his long reign, Zorn felt fear. He turned to his most trusted guard. "Prepare my escape ship," he ordered. But as Zorn hurried through the palace's secret corridors, he found his path blocked. Captain Zhang and her team stood before him, weapons raised. "Emperor Zorn," Zhang said, her voice cold, "in the name of Earth and the free peoples of the galaxy, you're under arrest." Zorn's guards moved to attack, but they were no match for the human special forces. In moments, the Emperor of 1,000,000 worlds stood alone and defeated. As Zhang led Zorn away in restraints, the Emperor spoke softly. "How?" he asked. "How did you defeat us?" Zhang looked him in the eye. "Because we had something worth fighting for," she replied. "Freedom, justice, and the memory of a little boy named Timmy." Outside, the citizens of Imperius Prime watched in awe as human ships filled the sky. Some felt fear, others hope. The long night of imperial rule was ending. Admiral Chen's voice echoed across the planet. "People of the Empire, your ruler has fallen. But we come not as conquerors, but as liberators. The age of oppression is over." As word spread across the galaxy, celebrations erupted on countless worlds. Species that had lived under the Empire's boot for generations tasted freedom for the first time. On the Earthen Fury, Chen allowed herself a moment of reflection. They had won, but at a great cost. The real work of building a free and just galaxy was just beginning. As Imperius Prime's sun set, casting a golden glow over the planet, a new era dawned for the galaxy, and at its heart stood humanity, no longer the underdog, but the champion of freedom for all. 1 year had passed since the fall of the Galactic Empire. The grand halls of the former Imperial Palace on Imperius Prime, once a symbol of oppression, now buzzed with activity of a different kind. Representatives from 1,000 worlds gathered for the first meeting of the Galactic Council. Humans stood side by side with aliens of all shapes and sizes. The air was filled with a mix of excitement and uncertainty. Admiral Sarah Chen, now serving as Earth's representative, took her place at the circular table. She looked around at the diverse faces, each representing a species that had suffered under imperial rule. "Friends, allies," she began, her voice carrying across the hall. "We stand at the dawn of a new era. The Empire is gone, but the real work begins now." In the streets outside, Citizens watched on giant screens. Among them was Lai Zong, the captain who had captured Emperor Zorn. She listened intently, hoping for a better future. Back in the council chamber, a tall, tree-like being spoke up. "We appreciate Earth's role in our liberation," it said, leaves rustling. "But how can we be sure you won't become the new empire?" Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Chen nodded, understanding their fears. "A fair question," she replied. "That's why Earth proposes a constitution, one that limits the power of any single world or species. We've learned from history. We won't repeat its mistakes." As the council debated, other changes were happening across the galaxy. On the planet Novaterra, where young Timmy had died, a grand memorial was being unveiled. Thousands gathered in a new park, centered around a statue of a smiling boy. Timmy's parents, tears in their eyes, stood at the front of the crowd. The planet's governor, a former resistance fighter, spoke solemnly. "We remember Timmy not just as a victim, but as a symbol, a reminder of why we fought, and why we must build a better future." Meanwhile, on distant worlds, former imperial strongholds were being transformed. Slave labor camps became schools. Weapons factories were converted to produce tools for rebuilding. Not everything was smooth, of course. On some planets, former imperial loyalists resisted the changes. Small skirmishes broke out, keeping the new peacekeeping forces busy. But for every conflict, there were a dozen success stories. Species that had been mortal enemies under imperial rule now worked together, sharing knowledge and resources. Back on Earth, humanity grappled with its new role in the galaxy. Schools taught students about alien cultures. Scientists collaborated with extraterrestrial peers, making breakthroughs in medicine and technology. In orbit, the massive dreadnoughts that had won the war were being repurposed. Some became deep space exploration vessels. Others were converted into mobile hospitals or disaster relief ships. As the Galactic Council's first day drew to a close, a historic vote was held. The new constitution, guaranteeing rights and freedoms for all sentient beings, was ratified. Chen felt a weight lift from her shoulders. They had taken the first step towards a lasting peace. As she left the council chamber, she was met by an unexpected visitor. A small blue-skinned child, member of the same species as the former emperor, approached her shyly. "Thank you," the child said, looking up at Chen with big eyes. "My parents say we're free now because of you." Chen knelt down, smiling gently. "It wasn't just me," she said. "It was everyone who dreamed of a better galaxy, including a brave little boy from Earth." As news of the Constitution's ratification spread, celebrations erupted across the stars. On 1,000 worlds, beings looked to the sky with hope. The galaxy was entering a new age. There would be challenges ahead, new threats to face. But for now, there was peace, and the memory of a child named Timmy, whose tragic death had sparked a revolution, would live on in the freedom of countless billions. In the vastness of space, the stars seemed to shine a little brighter. The age of empire was over. The age of unity had begun.